Today we're going to be looking at everything, well, at something that all of us have experienced at least sometime in our life, and that is stress. But not just stress itself, we're going to be looking at how stress affects our hormones, and can stress actually cause a hormone imbalance? We're also going to be looking at that, can this hormone imbalance or hormonal imbalance cause weight gain? And can CBD actually help us to rebalance our body, to get our hormones back in balance, and therefore also help us deal with our stress and help us deal with the possible weight management issues we may be experiencing? So if everyone could please just give that a little bit of a read for me. Healthy Hemp, as you know, we do not make any medical claims. I am not a medical practitioner, and I'm not medically qualified in any way. But today what I'm going to be sharing with you is research that I have actually been doing myself. I started looking into this a few months back, a couple of months back, and quite honestly, there is so much information out there. It really is a lot of information to absorb. So today I'm going to try as best as I can to get through an enormous amount of information out there with regard to stress, how it affects our hormones and weight management from the hormonal imbalance. I'm going to try and share as much of that as I can with you. I am going to be leaving references for you to do some more self-research. But today's presentation is based on research and information that I found out myself and for myself as well. So I hope that you gain some insight into it, and that maybe it will give you food for thought to possibly look into it further yourself. So there we go. And here we go. So our first part of our presentation we're going to be looking at is stress itself. So stress, well, what is the actual definition of stress? Well, stress means pressure or strain. So, and according to the HSE, stress can affect how you feel emotionally, mentally, and physically. So when we look at the emotional side, it's basically talking about, for example, if somebody is feeling grief. If we're looking at the physical stresses, it would be related to possibly illness or disease. And when we're looking at the mental or psychological, it is in reference, for example, to being afraid. So our human body reacts to events. And in the case of stress-provoked events, our body activates our nervous system and specific hormones in our body. It does this to prepare us. It's arming us, if that's how you want to put it, putting on our armor. And it's doing this so we'll be able to cope and deal with the actual pressure and the stress of that exact moment that has caused our bodies to react. Now, the hormones, these specific hormones that are released, they speed up the heart rate, they speed up the breathing rate, the blood pressure goes up, and they speed up the metabolism. So is this normal? Absolutely. This is 100% natural, healthy reaction known as stress response. Okay, now stress response. The HPA, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, actually controls the stress response, ultimately through the release of cortisol, which is a hormone, okay? But there are causes in our life for overstress. All right, so we have our everyday stresses. We all know about that. But there are causes in our life that could cause us to overstress. And that can result in too much stress response. So in other words, if we see there already that the HPA controls the stress response through releasing cortisol into our system. So when we have too much stress response, we're obviously going to have higher levels of cortisol being pumped into the system. So what we also need to remember though, and this is very specific to each person's unique physiology and each person uniquely, is what causes stress for one person does not necessarily cause stress for another. So let's look at a few causes of stress out there. All right. So it could be exams. It could be problems at school or work. It could be sexual, physical, emotional abuse. It could be a relationship. It could be new responsibilities in our life. It could be moving to a new place, traumatic event. Now, in the traumatic event, according, because this is an excerpt from the HSE, they say such as the death of a loved one. But I have seen some enormous and profound stress related to an event of a wedding and getting married. I myself have experienced that. So that's also a stress. Another cause could be new and chronic illness or disability, peer pressure and being bullied, most definitely. And a big one, unrealistic expectations placed on you by yourself, friends, family, or culture as a whole. And I've added one in there underneath, social and society pressures, because let's be honest, there is so much pressure from society with regard to sometimes body image, how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to act, what's cool, what's not cool, especially in our teenagers, but not just in our teenagers. Full-grown adults are subjected to this pressure from society of what's acceptable and what's not. And I suppose there's a very big one out there in society pressures is, for example, our new mums. New mums and new dads are supposed to act in a certain way. And let's be honest, there's actually no book out there on parenting. There's no perfect parent. There are good parents. So let's look at some of the impact of stress on our bodies, on us, really. So we can put them into kind of categories. To me, these categories kind of overlap each other and can bleed into each other. So please don't take these as word. This is just, as I said, what I found out from my own personal research. So there's short-term stresses, and the impact of short-term stress could be feeling overwhelmed, irritable, wound up, anxious, possibly fearful, nervous, distracted, battling to concentrate, worried. I've seen that worried on many people's faces, pressured, feeling pressured at work or even in our everyday life that we haven't accomplished this or we've got a deadline for something and just really feeling the pressures. Okay, so then we also have increased and long-term stresses, which can cause fatigue, depression, chest pain or pressure, fast heartbeat, dizziness, shaking, difficulty breathing, a lot of that people would say is like a panic attack, irregular menstrual periods in our ladies, erectile dysfunction or impotence in our gentlemen, loss of libido and sex drive in both. It also may lead to like an increased amount and continuous amount of this longer term stress will also lead to possibly a loss of appetite or overeating, but also undereating. Stress also can create undereating. It's not all about, oh, I'm stressed and I just ate everything in the fridge. And a big one that I see pops up very often is poor sleep. Now, going on from our short-term stress and our increased and longer-term stress, there is also something that can be fatal and can be detrimental to our health, and that is chronic stress. So after you've dealt with the short-term stress, your body naturally returns to normal and it rebalances itself. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for example, if you dealt with a situation where the body now detects you're in a stressful situation and it now kicks in and it sends cortisol and adrenaline into your system to prepare you for fight or flight. And I'm sure all of us have heard of that, fight or flight, you know, do I stay, do I go, that type of scenario. But the body's prepared you with that. And after the scenario and the situation has died down or gone, the body returns the cortisol levels back down and the adrenal levels, so it rebalances itself. So the body returns to normal. But in chronic and long-term stress, however, this can result in health problems because there's this constant amount of extra hormones being pumped into the system. So what are some of the impacts on the body from chronic stress? Well, it could be problems in the digestive system. It could be obesity problems. We could now have problems with our immune system, our nervous system. For example, anxiety, depression, loss of sleep, lack of interest in physical activity, memory and decision making can be affected. And then there's also obviously a lot more severe is our cardiovascular system. So the constant increase in blood pressure, heart rate, levels of fats in the blood, increase in blood glucose levels, especially in the evening, and in the evenings where we all want to suddenly start eating. These are all risks. These are all adding to your risk of a heart disease and hardening of the arteries, stroke, obesity, and diabetes. So again, ladies and gents, there's a reference at the bottom there for you to please read up more on that if you wish to. So now we've spoken about stress, and stress itself is constantly talking about how it's affecting the hormones. And when we're under stress, it's pumping hormones into our system, specific hormones. But so let's take a quick look at some of those hormones. There's no ways I would be able to cover all the hormones for you in today's presentation. So we know that all of our hormones are vital for survival in our body. Our hormones have specific duties and specific tasks, okay? And they are involved in every single aspect of our health and are needed by our body in very specific amounts in order for our body to function optimally. So, if a hormonal imbalance kicks in, it may increase now the risks of a variety of health challenges. So let's take a look now at one of those systems, our hormone system in particular, called the endocrine system. Now, the endocrine system, it's a network of glands in the human body that make the hormones that our body desperately needs and we survive on. The endocrine system controls many different functions, such as respiration, metabolism, reproduction, sensory perception, movement, sexual development, and growth. Okay, now some factors, obviously, may affect our endocrine organs. For example, puberty, aging, pregnancy, environmental factors, genetics, certain diseases and medications, naturopathic and prescription medications, and also natural and herbal supplements can affect our endocrine organs. So this is what these are the endocrine glands, the major endocrine glands in our body. So as you can see, we've got the pituitary. Now the pituitary gland there is considered the master control gland. The pituitary gland controls other glands and makes the hormone that triggers growth. Okay. What we also have is the pineal gland on the other side. So the pineal gland that produces melatonin, which affects sleep. We then have our thyroid gland, and we've all heard of the thyroid. It produces hormones associated with calorie burning and heart rate. Our adrenal gland produces hormones that control sex drive and stress. We have our pancreas. The pancreas produces insulin that helps control blood sugar levels. Then we have our ovaries, which is obviously in women, and that eats estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, and it is the main female sex organ. And we have our testes, which is in men, and it produces the male sex hormone, testosterone, and it produces sperm. So those are our major endocrine glands in our body, and obviously ovaries for ladies and testes for men. So let's look at some of the specific hormones now that are excreted and produced by some of those glands. So the first one, as I mentioned in our starting there, is cortisol. So cortisol is produced by the adrenal gland. Now, I know this all looks pretty all set up and that, but when you see exactly what the function of the hormone is and what can possibly happen if it is not in the right balance, it allows you to actually associate it possibly with maybe some menopause or a hormonal imbalance that you may be suffering with. So the cortisol produced in the adrenal glands, it is known as the stress hormone. So when our body feels stress, it pumps cortisol into the bloodstream. It's released when the body senses stress. The result is increased heart rate, blood pressure, blood glucose, respiration and muscle tension. It actually shuts down the digestion and reproduction when there is a burst of cortisol into the bloodstream. Very high and elevated levels can result in overeating and weight gain. Now, we're going to move on to our next one in the top corner there, ghrelin. It's produced in the stomach and the small intestine, and it's known as the hunger hormone. Now, it regulates appetite. So this is a really, really important hormone in our body. It regulates appetite. It signals the hypothalamus that we need to eat. So when the stomach is empty, it basically detects that we've got no nutrition in us and we need to eat, we need to get nutrition into our body. So it signals the hypothalamus that it's time to eat. Now, in obesity, obesity has shown to be in people that suffer with a disease called Prader-Willi syndrome. Now, this basically, they have extremely high levels of the ghrelin in their bloodstream. So they basically, the high levels in the bloodstream are indicating that we need to eat, we need to eat, we need to eat. So that is also a reason why the obesity is on, because they basically, there's the levels of the ghrelin levels are never dropping down. They're constantly increasing in the bloodstream, and this is indicating to the hypothalamus that they needed to eat the whole time. So that is just a condition that's out there. Now, they say that if you increase eating protein, and that's not necessarily meats, proteins are also available, vegetarian forms of protein, it can help reduce the levels of ghrelin that are produced, so that you feel satisfied for longer. So your stomach doesn't get that growling. As soon as your stomach gets that growling, ghrelin's actually basically being produced to tell the body that signal to the hypothalamus that you need to eat. So another important factor is that the ghrelin appears to help control insulin release into the body as well. So that is actually really, really interesting. It seems to be a multifunctional hormone. Another hormone, which is this one is really important, and I was really interested to discover it, was the leptin. Now, leptin's produced in the fat cells in our adipose tissues. It's known as the satiety hormone. Okay, it inhibits hunger. It regulates energy balance. In other words, it signals the hypothalamus that the fat storage in the body is full and we don't need any more. So in other words, basically it inhibits the hunger. It makes you not feel hungry, that you don't need to eat, that you don't need to feed the body more energy, because food, that's what food really is for our body. It is energy. So lowered levels of the leptin, especially during dieting, when people are kind of starved dieting, that can actually trigger huge cravings. And with the cravings, it increases, there's a huge increase in actual appetite. So it's really the hormone that kicks in after somebody's done a diet, and then at the end of the diet, they tend to just then put all that weight back on again because they feel like they're starving. Okay. Now, leptin resistance is a condition, and it's when the system is not working as it should. Okay. In other words, the signals to the hypothalamus are just not getting the right. The hypothalamus is just not getting the signals from the leptin to say, listen, I've got enough fat storage, I don't need any more energy. So leptin resistance is actually where there's a break in this communication, in the signals, and therefore obesity seems to be a condition from leptin resistance. Now, insulin, we've all heard of insulin, and insulin is produced in the beta cells in our pancreas. It is the main fat storage hormone, okay? It allows cells in our body to absorb glucose, and the glucose is the energy that our cells need. Our cells desperately need that energy. Our bodies need that in order to actually function properly. So, but when the insulin also decides which glucose is going to be used by the cells for energy immediately, and then it also decides which of the glucose is going to convert into fat and store for later when needed. So that's another, storing too much basically is where a problem starts to kick in. Now, insulin also helps break down fat and protein. Produced levels are regulated by blood sugar levels. So the amount of insulin that the pancreas produces is regulated by our blood sugar levels and other hormones found in the body. Now we're going to move on to our next hormone, which a lot of people also know about as well. It is thyroxine, known as T4. Now it's produced in the thyroid gland. It has a crucial role in our body with regard to heart and digestive function, to metabolism, with regard to brain development, bone health, and muscle control. Okay, now T4 is produced by the thyroid. It enters the bloodstream. It's now processed through the liver and the kidney and actually gets converted into active form of T3. So be patient with me. This is a nice long word. Triiodothyronine or 9. I'm not too sure. But our T4 is converted by our liver and our kidney into the active form, which is known as T3. Now, there are two conditions related to excessive amounts and too low amounts of thyroxine in the system, and that would be hyperthyroidism, and there will also be, hyper, and then there'll be hypo. Obviously, the hyperthyroidism is excessive thyroid hormone production. It's most often caused by Graves' disease or an inactive thyroid nodule, menstrual irregularities, and there's an increase in bowel movement, there's weight loss, heat intolerance, fatigue, and irritability. Those are just some of the impacts on our body from the excessive thyroid hormone production. Now, hypothyroidism is a low production of thyroid hormone. Thyroid damage caused by autoimmune disease is the most common cause of hypothyroidism. In adults, a deficiency in adults will lower the metabolic rate. It will cause weight gain. Memory problems are also related to it. Infertility, fatigue, and muscle stiffness. Again, there's a fantastic website where I referenced on the thyroxine, which is hormone.org, and there's a reference at the bottom. Please look at it to gain further information if you feel you need. Now, we're going to look at our sex hormones because these are the last two hormones we're going to be looking at today before we move on to our weight management side. So we've looked at the stress, we've looked at some of the hormones, and our two final hormones we're going to look at is our sex hormones. Our male hormone, the main male hormone is testosterone. Now, here's a few aging facts about the hormones, okay? Number one, testosterone production levels decrease gradually in men, beginning around the age of 30. In the aging factor related to our hormones, our estrogen is our female sex hormone. It's our main female sex hormone, and the production drops rapidly, beginning around about the age of 40. In men, sperm production does not stop, but in women, egg production stops completely eventually in our life. in men. Not all men actually experience low testosterone or sperm production, but all women experience low estrogen and egg production. So that just shows you some of the differences there. And in actual fact, that's where I'm going on to my next slide, and why those factors there have basically said, and unfortunately, gentlemen, here we go, that if you look down there, male menopause is a myth. Menopause is what happens to ladies where eventually we stop producing enough estrogen in our body that it eventually stops, our egg production stops. But men, you do still produce testosterone. The levels might drop a bit, but you do still produce testosterone. But we'll get to that. So our male and female hormones now, just to get some of the facts on it. Testosterone, our male hormone, is produced in the testes. It's controlled by the brain and the pituitary gland. It is the important male sex hormone. Obviously, there are other sex hormones, but it's the important male sex hormone. It controls the male's physical features, muscles and bones, facial, pubic, and body hair, voice, growth, and also sperm production and sex drive. Now, male menopause is a myth. Sorry again, gentlemen. Low testosterone levels. Now, if somebody suffers from low testosterone levels, there is a drop in sex drive, poor erection, low sperm count. There's also enlarged or tender breasts on the gentleman. Now, high levels of testosterone are actually, it's a condition, and it is only seen in our young. Basically, it causes early puberty. So for example, if somebody has the condition and suffers from high levels of testosterone, you're not going to see it in an elderly man in his 40s, 50s, 60s, or a mature gentleman, or even in the 20s. High levels of testosterone are going to show up in children. So that how it shows up is that that according to the research that I did, it would be, for example, a 9-year-old would now start showing very early signs of going through puberty with regard to hair growth, both facially, pubic hair growth, and body hair, as well as a spurt in growth at that time, voice changing, etc. So all the physical features that testosterone would have on a male, on a male, basically with the high testosterone levels would happen with a child at a very early age. So instead of them going through their puberty during the teens, for example, early to mid-teens and so forth, they would actually go through it possibly at the age of 9 or 10 years old. Now, estrogen is our female hormone. It is the one of the sex hormones, but it's our main sex hormone. So it's produced in the ovaries. It's the important female sex hormone. Its increased and decreased levels can cause weight gain. So up or down can actually cause weight gain. Now, menopause, yes, women go through menopause, and menopause is when the levels drop. There's less production in the ovaries of estrogen. Fat storage in our body starts to change, and it shifts from usually our hips and our thighs now to more around the abdomen. And this in itself promotes insulin resistance and increases risks, disease risks. So again, under there, I have 2 PubMed references with regard to that. Please feel free to take a further look at those. Now, if we're now moving on to our weight, so we've looked at our stress. We've seen that stress, and in stressful environments, our body kicks into action to arm us and prepare us, and it kicks in cortisol. The cortisol is, and in fight or flight scenarios, cortisol and adrenaline are pumped into the system, but our body reacts all the time to stress. So when we're under short-term stress, our body normalizes and comes back to normal on its own. But we can also have other stresses in our life that impact on our body, on our health, that are longer and chronic stresses that most definitely impact on our health. So can stress cause hormonal imbalance? Absolutely, because of the stress the hormones in our body are producing, because they constantly feel they needing to be kicking into action. So there we go. And can imbalanced hormones affect our weight and make it considerably harder for us to lose weight? Absolutely. Because when we look at what the responsibility is and what the duty is of each hormone, for example, the cortisol that we looked there, the ghrelin, the leptin, the insulin, the thyroxine, when we looked at exactly what those hormones do in our body, and their duty and how they balance and keep things balanced, need to eat, stop eating, the fat storage is enough, glucose levels in the bloodstream, and cortisol obviously for our energy balance, and how this all works together with the HPA axis. Well, most definitely, without a doubt, imbalanced hormones will affect our weight, and it will make it considerably harder for us to lose weight. Now, in most cases of weight, being overweight, and so forth, hormones are not the only reason. They're not the only reason why we are carrying excess weight. There are effects on our weight management. Their effects on our weight management is massive, and but they're just part of the bigger picture. Our diets, our calorie intake, our activity, our stresses in life, our environmental effects, the conditions that we live in, these can all affect aspects that may cause us to imbalance, cause the hormones to imbalance, but they will, at the end of it, result in that it will affect our weight management. Now, how can we possibly deal with this? So, hormonal weight gain symptoms. These are some of the symptoms that may show up, and increased appetite, particularly nighttime eating. So we all sit down, and I don't know how many people I've heard, and I myself, that I'm fine during the day. I don't need to snack on anything during the day, and I'm not. But nighttime, when I sit down, it just seems to be when I want to just eat everything in sight. So, seafood. Right, not being able to get a restful night's sleep. So sleep is definitely one of the big calling cards. Increased abdominal fat compared to other parts of the body, where you may possibly through your life have always carried possibly on your hips or your thighs, and now you see that you just, for some reason, it's just all seems to be accumulating around our abdominal midriff section and stomach. Most definitely. More frequent headaches and joint pains, absolutely. High blood pressure levels, hyperglycemia, sweating more than usual, absolutely, and decreased libido. So there we go. Basically, a decrease in sex drive. So those are just some of the hormonal weight gain symptoms that you might be experiencing. So there. Now, CBD. We're going to look at CBD because CBD is used commonly to help people with weight management, and not just with weight management. CBD is used for stress, anxiety. It regulates the systems in our body. It brings everything back to balance. Now, CBD, as you all know, is cannabidiol. It's derived from the cannabis plant, the hemp plant in particular, which is our cannabis sativa, and it has been proven to supplement the endocannabinoid system, that is a system in our bodies, beautifully. So the endocannabinoid system is the system that regulates all the other systems in our body, bringing them back to balance, homeostasis. It does this by interacting with receptors in our body, CB1 and CB2, and these receptors are found throughout the brain, central nervous system, our immune system, and all our organs. The nervous system and the endocrine system. Remember, the endocrine system is where we find all the glands that produce our hormones, okay? And they just two of the systems in our body. But the nervous system and the endocrine system, it works beautifully with those. And it's used for endocrine health challenges. widely used for endocrine health challenges, and people seem to get fantastic results and find rebalance. That is the feedback from people who have taken CBD for that. It has also got case studies done on it, and I have a whole lot of references about those at the end of our presentation. Now, the ECS plays a crucial role in regulating fear and anxiety and how we cope with stress. And if you remember from the beginning of our presentation, stress is just possibly one of the keys and triggers that can then start the snowball effect of imbalancing our hormones, and therefore we gain weight or have weight management issues from that. So dealing with our stress, if we are under stress and a lot of anxiety at the moment, and taking the CBD to help to bring our stress levels down and regulate our system, fantastic. Now, we ourselves produce our own endocannabinoids called Anandamide, which is known as the feel-good cannabinoid, and 2AG. Now, chronic stress increases levels of a fatty acid called fatty acid amide hydrolase, also known as FAR. Now, FAR is the enzyme that breaks down anandamide. Now, if you remember from our slide before, anandamide is our feel-good cannabinoid that we naturally produce in our body. So we want to make sure that we have that feel-good cannabinoid in our bodies as much as possible. But chronic stress can cause the FAR to break down, produce more of the FAR, which breaks down anandamide naturally. And the more anandamide deficient we are, the more anxious we will become. So CBD, what does it do for this? Well, CBD inhibits anandamide reuptake. So in other words, the breaking down and taking back into the body. So that's an absolute plus, because that's going to, number one, leave more anandamide in our system, which means we're going to have more of the our natural feel-good cannabinoid in our system. We want that most definitely. But what CBD also does is it delays the metabolism by FAR. In other words, it delays the breakdown of FAR, of anandamide. Now, that action has to happen. That's all part of the natural process in our body, but it's going to delay it so that we have the anandamide naturally in our systems for longer. So taking the CBD is going to do that. What CBD also does is it interacts with the serotonin receptor called the 5-HT1A, which is in our brains. Now, serotonin is a mood. It affects our moods. We have the serotonin in our bodies. It affects our moods. So it interacts directly with the serotonin receptor, which is going to basically increase our mood, uplift our mood. So there we go. CBD does that too. So it's leaving the feel-good anandamide cannabinoid in our system by taking the CBD, and it also interacts directly with our serotonin receptor in the brain. Now, there's just some of the benefits of hemp cannabidiol, CBD. Anti-inflammatory, as I've mentioned, the pain management. It's also fantastic from combating anxiety and depression disorders. It combats neurodegenerative disorders, psychosis, nausea. It suppresses seizure activities, and that's been proved by WHO, the World Health Organization. Fantastic for pain management with regard to muscular pain and nerves, and obviously inflammation. Now, with regard to inflammation, obesity and inflammation are directly linked. So when we've gained weight and that, we basically are causing inflammation in our body. So CBD is has natural anti-inflammatory properties and effects on our body. So at the bottom there, you can see that the endogenous cannabinoids have been confirmed to participate in the regulation of food intake and energy homeostasis of the body. Energy, again, how much we burn, and have a sufficient impact on the endocrine system, which is our hormone system, including the activity of the pituitary gland, adrenal cortex, thyroid gland, pancreas, and the gonads. And that is a publishment from PubMed. So how CBD works in the body? Well, it relieves anxiety, reduces the risk of artery blockage. It's an anti-inflammatory. It promotes bone growth, so that's vital as well, especially ladies with going through menopause. One of the problems with regard to menopause, and obviously the imbalance in the hormones, because it's the hormonal imbalance that causes bone density problems. Then CBD also relieves pain, and it's neuroprotective, and attached there are the actual case studies with regard to proving and justifying that that is what CBD does in the body. So how to lose hormonal weight gain? Well, here we go. So I got this, I put this together from various nutritionists that had written up on hormonal weight gain, how to basically deal with hormonal weight gain, because it is very, very different. Hormonal weight gain is very, very different. You have to come at it from a completely different angle to what you would if you were just losing normal weight. Okay, so there's always been the mentality is that what calories go in must be calories burnt, and what calories go in, you must burn more calories in order to lose weight. And for a lot of women and men that are dealing with hormonal imbalance, this constant of, oh, well, I am burning more than what I've got coming in, sometimes never ever shifts a pound. Or they lose, but just as quickly they put on, but they've made no changes. They're still sticking to the strict exercise routine and calorie intake. And sometimes they just find it's like a losing battle and almost impossible. And that's because the hormones are out of balance. So when it comes to losing hormonal weight gain, it has to be approached a bit differently. So number one, change the way you eat and drink. Remove all the processed foods, refined carbohydrates, sugars, and sugar substitutes from your diet. Increase your protein intake, and because, as we said earlier, increasing the protein intake with regard to our stomach and the hormone ghrelin, it's going to keep us satisfied for longer. So the stomach and the small intestine is not going to feel it necessary to produce ghrelin to tell the hypothalamus that we need to eat. So protein, again, meats and vegetarian and vegan. Protein is available in all forms. So increase the protein intake. Another important one, which has been proven again and again, is the intake of omega-3. It's actually omega-3 and 6. The omegas are vitally important to our body. And in actual fact, omega-3 naturally encourages our own natural feel-good cannabinoid. Do you remember him? Anandamide. And it naturally encourages the production of anandamide in our body. And omega-3 is found packed in hemp seed oil. So that is fantastic. So add in some hemp seed oil to your diet, and drizzling the hemp seed oil over your cooked vegetables, over your chicken breast, adding it to your salads, your smoothies, porridge. My clients put it in their porridge. It's endless. It's endless with what you're able to actually do with the hemp seed oil, and you will be feeding your body fantastic omega-3. We've actually got the omega-3 and 6 in the proportion ratio of 3:1, so it's fabulous. So the hemp seed oil will naturally encourage anandamide production. Fantastic. So CBD and your natural anandamide, you can't go wrong. Now, targeted exercise, and I'm not a physical advisor. I'm no instructor, so please seek some professional advice. And when you do, talk to them and ask them to please look at you with regard to the hormonal imbalance affecting your weight, and they may be able to assist you there. So, but CBD at this moment in time helps control the increased cortisol levels that are associated with high intensity workouts. Now, why do I say that? Well, remember, cortisol is pumped into the system and it's put into the system to deal with times of stress. High intensity workouts can make the body feel that they're in a stressful situation. So your body will now be flooded with cortisol. Okay, now cortisol has been related to basically building up of tummies and fat accumulation around the abdomen area. So you want to control that when you're exercising as well. And CBD has been proven to actually control the increased levels that are associated with high intensity. So taking your CBD and going and still doing your exercise, but possibly, I don't know, obviously the professional will give you better advice. But from what I can see is that maybe high intensity workouts are not best at this moment in time when you're trying to initially combat, maybe starting off slow. I don't know. As I said, I'm not a professional, but most definitely what I can tell you is that the CBD will control those increased cortisol levels and not allow them to get high during your high intensity workout. Therefore, you're not basically cortisol high now adding more cortisol high, which is kind of defeating the object. Take supplements to improve your hormone levels. Most definitely. Again, CBD helps encourage homeostasis through all our physiological systems in the body, in the human body, including the nervous system and including the endocrine system, our hormone system. So most definitely, taking a hormone supplement to bring that to balance is fantastic. Now, there are other hormone supplements out there, for example, that deal with sleep improvements and so forth, melatonin supplements that you can take. But may I recommend that before you even go near that, try the CBD first, which will then naturally encourage your body's own melatonin levels to actually come to balance. So instead of just supplementing them, CBD causes the body to self-regulate and self-control and rebalance itself. So I would say definitely, if you can, rather try the CBD before you go the other way. Okay. Consider a hormone level test, most definitely. If you feel and believe that you are definitely suffering with a possible hormonal imbalance, please go to your GP and request a hormone blood test for them to scrutinize the hormone levels in your system. A very important one is relax. So relax, maybe take on some meditation. Again, we related stress to hormonal imbalance to weight gain. So let's start at the beginning again. Anxiety and stress. Meditation has shown to really be having a phenomenal calming effect. So maybe look at some meditation and taking on some meditation on an everyday basis, just maybe once a day or twice a day, just to help bring the levels down, because obviously in meditation and calming, like CBD has proven to have very calming and anti-anxiety effects, and that's why it also assists with sleep, and meditation would do the same. So sleep is vital because we all need better sleep, okay? And better sleep has massive effects on our overall health. Melatonin, as I said, is the hormone that encourages better sleep. And CBD has helped many of my clients personally, and there are many reviews out there with regard to how CBD has assisted people to get a better sleep. They have slept more soundly. They have woken up feeling refreshed. There's no drowsy effects or anything from taking CBD to assist you with sleep. Why? Because it's not a narcotic, it's not a euphoria, it's not going to give you the high. That is THC. THC is the other cannabinoid in the cannabis plant. CBD has no psychoactive effects whatsoever. And CBD helps to calm, so it works on the nervous system. So if you can see that you're taking the CBD, it's calming the nervous system. The brain, our body, everywhere. Obviously our nerves are far-reaching and everywhere, and it's really bringing in a sense and a good feel of calm across your whole body, and that will naturally help you to actually drift off into sleep naturally. As I say to my clients, it's fantastic when you're lying there and you've taken your CBD and then your off switch goes click and you just turn off for the evening. So I hope you've enjoyed our talk so far. If you are wanting to look and invest in some CBD or start your CBD journey, please do not hesitate to visit our online store. That is a picture of our store page at healthyhemp.ie. All the products that we sell are 100% organic. They are natural hemp. They are Irish and EU hemp extract, and they're grown in Ireland and the EU as well. We are also Irish Industrial Hemp Association approved, so are all the products, and all the products are independently tested by EarLab. So there's a lot more to see there, and we try to make our store as simple and as easy to use as possible with our CBD oils, which is the oils that you would put underneath your tongue and absorb into the bloodstream sublingually. We also have capsules, topicals, which is obviously for topical and localized treatment. Very popular. Topicals are very popular with my clients who suffer with arthritis, muscle pain, and also my sports persons. We also have our vape products, and we have a video on vaping and vape oils, so please feel free to take a look at that. We have tea and coffee, CBD tea and coffee. Nothing better than waking up in the morning and making yourself a gorgeous cup of joe, cup of coffee, and it's got CBD in it. Phenomenal. And the hemp tea, which is just packed with CBD, it is a natural hemp, the hemp flower, no twigs and stalks and seeds in that, and that is fantastic. And a lot of my clients absolutely love the hemp tea for nighttime. We also have for our pets, we have our Hemp Superfoods, and in that category you will find our phenomenal and beautiful hemp seed oil. It truly is fantastic. It is packed with chlorophyll and all the omegas. As I said, the omegas fantastic for our anandamide production, and then we also have our hemp fabric and thread. So I hope you have enjoyed today's presentation with me. Please feel free to visit us on our Instagram page and Facebook page, or give us a call. Our number is there if you wish to give us a call to have a personal consult, and or send us an email. So thank you so much for joining us today. There are all the references to a lot of the information in our presentation today. And as I was mentioning about the high intensity workouts and how CBD can combat the effects of the cortisol, you can see it is our last one there. Definitely very good reads. If you feel there's anything more in the presentation that you would like to research yourself. So thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, hopefully we speak to you soon. So keep smiling, keep shining, go well.